All right, let's talk about the art of design very briefly. Okay, so 9.9 out of 10 of my students will do some sort of PowerPoint, Prezi, Google Slideshow for their presentation aids. I think it's a good idea to do that. It's what you're going to do for the rest of your career if you're in any sort of uh, a job that has you do presentations. Okay, so um, I just want to walk through some arts of design. Okay, some arts of design. Good lord, sorry, my alarm on my phone went off, reminding me to do something and that I need to do. So, the art of design. When you're going to design your visual aids, keep it simple. Now, depending on what textbook we're reading at the time, sometimes it's the 8 by 8, sometimes it's the 10 by 10. It varies, but keep it simple. What 8 by 8 means is, take a look at my slide over here. What it means is that you want to keep a slide with under 8 lines of text, and then 8 words across. Okay, so right now, if you count the title, I'm at 3 lines. Okay, sometimes you don't count the title, and folks, it's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a really great way to gauge, do I have too much information on this text? You do not want to put a giant block of text up on a slide and just read it word for word. Okay, if there's something that's important for you to read, find some way to break it up. Okay, so keep it simple, and at the end of this slide, by the way, we'll count what I've got here. Okay, so continuity, keep the design consistent. All right, that's pretty easy to do now. If you've got PowerPoint or anything, just make sure you keep the design consistent. Don't be moving text all over the place and have the weird transitions between every single slide. You can have now if it's the one transition, it's a little bit weird, but it's every single time. Okay, that way we get used to it. All right, but keep the design consistent throughout. Make it as professional as possible, folks. Don't. I mean, all of this is free now. You can use Google Slides for free. You can use PowerPoint online for free. I mean, Prezi's free. You've got really great tools at your disposal. Make it as professional as possible. So earlier on when I said posters, I did not mean it's okay to make a poster with markers and a poster board. Okay? Do not make a poster like that. Even if you're really good at drawing those blocked letters and coloring them in, it'll just look like a top-notch middle school poster. And I mean, in fact, any more middle school students can make better looking PowerPoints and Prezis than I could even dream of doing. So make it as professional as possible. Okay, that's the goal. You can have a really well put together presentation, and if you have a bad looking VA, then a VA means visual aid. Okay, if you have a bad looking visual aid, it hurts your credibility, especially now. Like, it's easy to make something look relatively decent. So make it look professional, okay? Do not have something that looks thrown together, okay? Make it professional. Now, just some things to consider as you're putting it together, okay? Make sure that the font is big enough to read. If you're doing a handout, make sure the font is big enough to read, okay? So make sure the font style is plain and professional and easy to read, okay? It's all about the audience here. It's all about the audience. Limit the use of the crazy effects, okay? So if you're going to use bold, italics, or underline, use them for emphasis. Save that, all right? Color and contrast. If you're going to have a light text, you got to have a dark background. And then vice versa. If you're going to have dark text, you need to have a light background. Make sure people can see it. Sometimes on your screen you can see it, but the screen that you then put it on at the school or the workplace conference room or whatever, it doesn't show up, okay? Make sure you can see it. Think about the color combinations, okay? Think about putting what colors together and how they work or don't work, okay? And so red and green text side by side, even though red and green on the color wheel have a good relationship, putting red and green side by side, what does it mean and how often are you doing it? Maybe you're using green text, but you use red to emphasize 3 words. It might be okay there because it draws people's eye to it, okay? So keep that in mind. Use color to your advantage, all right? And then the background, keep a simple background for the most part. You can have some flare. It's kind of what I call it. Has some flare background happening. I don't have anything on this slide, but this is very simple. But sometimes it's a little more busy, and that's okay. All right, use it tastefully. Be very careful about what it is that you're doing with the background in your slide. Okay, you might love fluorescent orange, but if we're going to have to look at a PowerPoint for 10 minutes with fluorescent orange as the background and black as the text, it might burn a hole in our eyeballs, so think about that. All right, so be careful, be thoughtful in how you design your visual aids. Okay, the cool thing is you can select a design template in all of these apps that I've mentioned, and they're going to look okay for the most part. Okay, they're going to look okay. Some are worse than others, but they're going to look okay. So folks, take your time and design something that works well. Okay. You don't have to spend 90 hours on it or anything like that, but take your time to do something good. Okay. So now, just to wrap up, things to consider overall as you're dealing with your visual aids. Okay. Number one, the timing. When will you show it? Okay. When will you show it? When will you pick up the coffee cup? When will you change the slide? When will you make the text appear? When will you make the text disappear? When are you going to do the movie? Okay, for how long should it be? Really consider the timing, okay? And then practice that timing to get it down. It's not always going to come naturally, okay? So you have to figure out the timing. And often, I cannot tell you how many times I've thought something's going to work in my head, and then when I try it, it doesn't work. So do the timing and figure it out. Do not use the auto change of slides. Don't do that. You will either be ahead or behind. It just happens, okay? And you do not want to be sitting there waiting for your slides to change, and you also don't want to be in mid-sentence, the speech is going okay, and your slide changes, and you're like, and you have to go with it, okay? Do not time your slides like that. Figure out what good timing is, what good pacing is, and you change what you need to change and figure out where it's good to show stuff at. Okay? Use a cover sheet. Here's the rule. If you're not verbally or non-verbally referencing a slide or referencing the coffee cup or whatever, it needs to go away. All right? So there are lots of different ways to use cover sheets. You can actually insert a blank slide into your slideshow, and you can go to that blank slide. Okay? You can take text away if you need to. If I'm talking about using a cover slide right now, and I want to talk about it for a minute, I can do this. Okay, cover slides are really important. Yada yada yada. I talk about it, but when I'm done with it, I can take it away and talk about timing some more or something. Make sense? So you have lots of different ways to use a cover sheet. Cover sheet is a way of saying directing attention. Okay. If you show a graph in your attention getter and then you leave it up for the entire speech, that's not good for you. Okay. Show it, deal with it, take it away. All right. You want to use cover sheets of some sort. Blank slides, hide it, something. Okay. Make sure you focus on the audience. It's a game of making sure that the audience can see what you're doing and that the visual aid makes sense to them, and that when you're talking to the audience. So it's a game of angles. All right. If I've got a screen behind me on a wall and I am using it, I have to verbally and physically reference it, right? It's a game of angles. So what you want to do is remember this. The closer to 90 degrees you get from your visual aid, the more trouble you're in. Okay? So if my screen is right here and I start, so it's on the wall behind me, let's just say, and the closer I get to 90 degrees, the more trouble I'm in. So I can actually turn like this. I'm at about a 45-degree angle from my wall right now, and I can still effectively get the audience. I can go all across the room comfortably, okay? But it's pushing it already. The further I get to 90 degrees, the harder it is for me to even talk to you. See, I am 90 degrees from you right now. I am 90 degrees from this wall behind me, and I can barely turn and see you, okay? So actually I had to turn back to almost 45 to see you. So if I'm doing this, I have to turn my head to see you. I've turned too far. The closer you get to 90 degrees, the more trouble you're in. Okay? Keep that in mind. You talk to the audience. You should know your visual aid well enough that you can still look at it. You can still turn and look at the wall behind you, and I'm still open to my audience. See? So really keep that stuff in mind. Standing there reading from the PowerPoint is not going to be good for your grade. Okay? And then use audience analysis. Think about who you're speaking to. You may be comfortable with that video that drops where people are talking and it drops 19 F-bombs in 10 seconds. You may be comfortable with that, but your audience might not be. So you need to not show that video no matter how good the video is, unless it is so good that you feel you have to show it. And if you do that, you give a warning. Folks, we're adults, and so sometimes if you're talking about something important and you're going to talk about it, you're doing a persuasive speech on the separation of children from their parents at the United States border, okay? Your audience might not be just ready and rearing to hear some of that audio that was released, or your audience might not be able to deal with in your speech on adopting an animal from a shelter. You want to, if there was an abused animal that came in, I have seen more pictures of abused animals in my career than I would like to say, because people use it as a visual aid. Use audience analysis. Give us a warning, please. I have had so many pictures just sprung up on me. I have had up close pictures of male and female genitalia, just like. Click, holy crap, in the speech it was a speech on sexual health, and it was, all of us saw things we did not think we were going to see that day. So use audience analysis. If you're worried about showing something, ask me, please, okay? Think about who your audience is, and think about the context, and think about that stuff. It doesn't mean it's always inappropriate to show something slightly graphic. Sometimes it's very appropriate to do that. Give us a warning, okay? So practice the timing, use a cover sheet, focus on the audience, think about what's going to be okay for them. And then as we get to the end here, overall, okay, keep it professional. Always professional, okay? Make it look good, make it sound good, make it flow good. Make it flow good. That's a great flow sentence. That's ridiculous. Make it flow well, okay? So make sure it's professional. Do everything you can do to keep the visual aid professional. Show the movie, but keep it professional. Always ask, what's this going to do for my credibility? What's this going to do for the presentation? What's this going to do for the audience? Make sure it's relevant, all right? And then make sure it's effective, okay? And it has to be all three. This is a lot like my big three for attention getters. I don't know if I referenced this or not. In one of my classes one time, I had a young man begin his speech on the importance of diet and exercise that I didn't approve. By the way, he just showed up and did it. He began his speech by taking off his shirt in front of the class. First of all, which three does this break? He took off his shirt in front of the audience, and to his credit, he was in shape, okay? But he took off his shirt in front of the audience, and he began with, I'll never forget it, something along the lines of, guys, would you like to look like this? Ladies, would you like to be with this? And the whole room groaned at him. It was scuzzy and sleazy, and it was icky. It was not cool. And so here's the thing. Was it relevant to his topic? Yes. Was it effective? Did he gain our attention with his visual aid, right? It's a visual aid. Was it a relevant visual aid? Yes. Was it effective? Yes. Was it professional? No. Grossly unprofessional, and actually completely ruined his credibility as a person. Like no one wanted to listen to him after that, right? So it has to be all three. Keep it professional, keep it relevant, keep it effective. Okay? So folks, if you have any questions about visual aids, let me know. You got to have one for the persuasive, and if you don't have one, your grade will suffer pretty good, okay? So let me know if you have any questions. We're going to discuss visual aids this week in our discussion board, so and brainstorm topics, okay? So I'll see you in the boards. Have a great week.